And it's wonderful to see you all. I got a glimpse. Thank you, Carolyn, for doing the reading so beautifully with so much feeling. And I got a glimpse of you. And I see Mark. He's in the village, of course. And I see Mike and Maitri. But, I can feel you all because Ananda Dallas always been like a place of great exploration and fun and healing, even for me. So it was like the period when I was serving here, I was serving in the school, and that was a great privilege and a great spiritual adventure in many ways. I was involved for 8 years. At the same time, there were, of course, like in every great service, there were lots of challenges. And then by Divine Mother's grace, I guess I met Maitri, Mark, and Galen during a family camp in Seattle, or was it? Yeah, it was it was in Oregon. It was in Oregon, yeah. It was what then was Laurelwood. And so there was immediately like a friendship was born, and then since that moment, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I came to Dallas almost every year. And it was always for me a great privilege, a great joy. And like I said, also a form of like balancing these two services, the service at the school here in Europe and the service and being with you all. So thank you for having me. Let's dive straight into this reading. So I would like to focus mostly on the two quotes, one from the Bible and the other one from Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita. So it's a famous one, of course. But as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. I've sometimes wondered what that means, because believing to me has never meant very much. I was born and I grew up in Amsterdam, and religion, as I could see it, and I had no religious upbringing at all myself, but religion was all about believing. And there was, for me, there was a mediocre ring about just believing, why should I believe anything? So, but we'll get to that, because basically what the Bible does here is saying you don't need to do that much, because we'll see as many as received him, and apparently receiving him is not so easy. So you can also just believe in him, and that is a little bit less difficult than receiving him. So let's look at both, all right? So let's first focus a little bit on receiving. And the image came to me of like why this can be difficult, or I wouldn't like to say it's difficult, but it requires a certain understanding that efforts need to be made. But that efforts take you in the direction of what we can call a critical mass, okay? So at a certain point in your efforts, you get to a point where you can feel that you're not alone, that you're being helped in all this. And then you're at a good point, because then you know why you're doing it, okay? But the image that came to me is, imagine there's like a house with a big family, right? Like maybe 7 kids or something. They're all playing, it's a big chaotic household. Dad is maybe listening to the radio. Mom is on the phone with her friends. The children are running everywhere. And Jesus knocking on the door. But nobody can hear him. So nobody goes to the door to open the door, because they can't hear the knocking even. They're making so much noise. They're so much self-centered in what they're doing, in their own little pleasures and games and fun, that they cannot even conceive or begin to conceive who is standing at their door. So nobody runs to the door to open it. right? So we might compare the household, the children, the parents, as our thoughts, as our mind. And our thoughts and mind as when they are, and our feelings and emotions, okay? They are usually, with the average human being, the state that most people are in, are centered around the reality of the ego. And the very nature of ego, ahamkara, excludes receptivity. And the ego does not want to open that door. Not because he doesn't want it, but he feels he doesn't need it. He doesn't even perceive it. He doesn't hear the knocking. And so all these thoughts and feelings and emotions that are somehow connected with ahamkara, with the ego, they will not let Jesus in. They will not let God in. They will not open the door or the heart to Divine Mother. So then what brings us, what changes us? Because the change has to occur in the ego itself. Otherwise, the ego can go on forever, But the ego itself needs to have some beginning understanding that there is some fun there, that there's something good to be received. So how does that happen, And so there are two ways of working on receptivity. So one is natural, and the other one requires a certain quality. Now, what is that quality? I heard our spiritual director here, Anand. He told us once about a conversation that he had with Swami Kriyananda. And he asked Swami Kriyananda, Swami, what is the most important attribute or instrument on the spiritual path? And you would think, knowing Swami, knowing of his devotion for Divine Mother, knowing of how serviceful he is. I hear a static. Is that me or is that something else?
We don't hear it here.
No,
Okay, no problem. Okay, so you would think, knowing Swami, that he would answer something like devotion or loyalty or, like here, attunement. But he says, what does he say? He says concentration. Concentration is the most important attribute or instrument on the spiritual path. Because concentration allows you to focus. And focus means that you choose also the object on which you want to focus. And when you start focusing on something that is given to you, then your spiritual power begins to develop. So what do I mean by something is given to you? Well, in all our lives, all the people, all the wonderful souls that are present during this satsang, at some point in your life, something beautiful must have happened, even though it may have been very subtle. For some people, the spiritual path, they start on the spiritual path in a very dramatic way. We know the story of Swami Kriyananda, that he read the book, the autobiography, and in a few days he took I think it's called the Greyhound bus, all the way from New York to Los Angeles. And that's how it happened with him, very dramatic, very powerful. Other people, it happens in a more subtle way. There is just something in them, some moral quality or some perception of something beautiful, something higher, maybe Jesus, maybe a picture that you've seen, maybe a voice that you have heard, or also maybe simply scripture. You've been reading something in a scripture and it has stuck with you. So usually we are given something. Okay? It's not that we are bereft deprived of any form of encouragement until we ourselves make that choice, right? To focus on spirit rather than on egoic self-serving. But that thing, that subtle recognition that is given to you, that is like, becomes like a seed that will stay with you during your incarnation, during your lifetime, and it will sprout in its own right time when it's karmically ready. And when it sprouts, there will be a magnetism, a spiritual magnetism that draws to you what you need to grow as a human being, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually. So when that happens, then you start to realize that focus is important. And that when you focus, that you want more of that, okay? For me, I had two important moments in my life. One was when I was a child, I did love Jesus. And that is, that is not at all a given thing when you live and when you're born in Amsterdam during the 60s. It is the least religious town in the world, I think. And there was a Catholic church not far from where I lived. And by the way, let me just open a little parenthesis here, because there is a connection with Dallas. So that church became important for me. Okay, and I'll tell you in a short time why. But on that church, there is a painting of a Flemish composer. Okay? And when I, like many years later, came back and visited that church, like having a little bit of a childhood, remembrance and going back into my childhood, those early feelings of devotion, I saw that picture, that painting, and what did it say? The original is in the Museum of Dallas, Fort Worth. So, not so long. So one time when I was there, I said to Nancy, I want to see that painting. And it's in, I can't remember the name of the museum, but it was Fort Worth in any case. Pardon?
Yeah. Maybe it was the Kimball?
Probably, yes. And so I saw the origin of the painting, very powerful, very beautiful painting. And there was, again, everything is connected in life, because that church is where literally my spiritual life began. And I was only maybe 6, 7 years old. There were paintings like the Stations of the Cross, and my father was very gracious, very kind, and he tried to explain what the paintings were trying to tell me. And I wanted to have little booklets about Jesus, and I wanted to hold the Bible in my hands. So that was the first sign of grace in my life, at least, that I needed to open up more, that I needed to be receptive. It was a reason, I was given a reason to be receptive to something that no one else can see, that is not visible to the mortal eye, but that it can be felt in the heart, can be felt in the soul. And of course, the second important moment was when I first saw the picture of Yogananda. So I had already I had been seeking, spiritually been seeking, and I was sincere in my seeking. And then all of a sudden I meet someone, takes me to his room, and I see this picture. And those eyes were looking at me. And I asked, what is this? Who is this? And my friend says, that is Yogananda of the Christ consciousness. Yogananda of the Christ consciousness. So there I had my keen interest in Oriental meditation techniques, But at the same time, my bond with Jesus, since childhood, I had it both in one master. Yogananda was clearly an Oriental. He was clearly a yogi. His name says it. Joy through yoga, yoga ananda. But there, then and there, those two things came together. And not much time passed, and I started reading his writings about Jesus. And it was as if Jesus was sitting next to me. So this is, let's say, for me at least, this is the state of belief in his name. Okay. So at that point, I believed in his name. It came natural. It was karma from past lives. It was spiritual karma from past lives. And so if we read the quote, he says, as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe in his name. So even then I had a certain spiritual power coming to me. And then it works like magnetism. Okay, the power attracts more power. Okay, and then that power must become the power of focus, the power of concentration. Because to be honest with you, I'm talking about myself, but I was by no means a saint. When I met Swami Kriyananda, I felt I had already studied his books and his lessons, the Raja Yoga course, that I started studying when I was 21. When I was 24, I met him and I felt not really worthy of being, on this path. I had so many distractions, you might call them. Not gonna name them by name, but there were so many other things that were just going on in my life and in my mind and in my heart and in my body. But he didn't seem to notice that. He didn't focus. He didn't concentrate on that. He concentrated on other qualities. He concentrated on my music. And he put out a lot of energy in just magnetizing me, seeing this is from past life. This is good karma. Help. You can help this work. You can be here. You can grow. This is a chance out of a million, out of a billion. And I could feel that he was doing that. In the beginning, I thought he was just imposing his will on me. But he was never saying anything. He was in his speech, in his talk when we spoke together, he was just kind and encouraging. And he was not at all saying what I should do or what I should not do. But when I meditated and I could feel his presence, I could feel his willpower, his tremendous willpower. And so in the beginning, it felt like, oh, he's trying to convince me that I have to stay here at Ananda. And Ananda was at that point, in those years, the 80s, it was not at all what it is now. It was completely new. And I had my studies in Amsterdam to finish. I had my parents who were still sending me money. So there were other reasons not to stay, but I could feel this power from him coming. And so I recently, actually last year, I was in Palo Alto and I told this story to Asha, and Asha said, no, I don't think at all he was trying to impose his will on you. I think he recognized you from past lives. He recognized that you are a disciple of this path. He recognized your bond with him, with his vibration and with Ananda, and he felt a responsibility towards you. And that so much touched my heart. As something that I had always thought of in one way, and then she came and she listened to me and she explained how she felt it. That was such a big help. Anyway, even now, concentration remains very, very important. Because if we had no karma left once we're on the spiritual path, then we wouldn't need to be on the spiritual path anymore. Our business would be done. We would be one with God. But people who come on the spiritual path, and people who come to Swami, they, or to Ananda, they get even stronger karmic tests. And I think some of you know all about that, know what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. But along with the tests comes the determination to overcome, comes the determination to stick to God. And so I see that a lot of some time has already passed. I think I had half an hour, but I would now like to read Krishna's words. He says, to those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment by means of which they attain me. So what happens? We are on this path. We learn meditation. Maybe we learn Kriya Yoga. We are given a spiritual family. But certain karmic tendencies still haunting us, are still haunting us. We haven't lost them, okay? So that is where concentration comes in. Always knowing that that it is focus and concentration that allow you under every circumstance, not only in life, but also in death, to choose the happiness, the true happiness that God can bring. Okay, so whenever you go down, try to never lose that little focus, saying, attach to me, worship me with love. And then what happens? You learn discernment. He gives you discernment. So that's another power. That's a superpower. So then you learn also to discern which thoughts, which emotions take you further on the path and which emotions are holding you back. So you have another weapon in your hands, okay? And then you can start making your inner choices of focus, of concentration. So we are now together and we have a certain critical mass, each one of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So now we must remember that we have been given, we believed in, we started to believe on his name because we were given certain perceptions. Then we chose to go deeper into this path, into these teachings. And now we are at a point where it becomes a responsibility for us to focus and to always choose to focus on the spiritual perspective of everything that's going on in our life. So, and that is probably the most important thing that we need to remember. Focus on the spiritual perspective of whatever karmic tests you are facing in your life, whether it's emotional, psychological, whether it's relationship, even when it's health, financial, whatever it be, okay? And know that if you do so with love, and you ask Jesus and you ask Krishna, okay, he will give you discernment. And if you have discernment, you will be able to use your powers of concentration to make good choices, both within yourself and in your business and in your personal life and in everything, all the aspects, all the areas of your life. You will make good choices because you have loved, you have chosen to love and to worship Krishna, God, and he will give you discernment. And that discernment will eventually take you all the way to union with God.
Thank you, Darshan, for that. And
I can barely hear you.
okay, we'll get our tech person to raise it up.
Yes,
Feel
now
that
I
should
can hear
be
you
on
better.
my mic. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you better. Was this okay? Was this short enough? I hope.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. You're right on time. So
Okay.
you showed discernment. Um,
Wow.
and with great love, we are very excited to invite people to ask any questions. We're going to bring this mic up here for the people that are here in the Sangha house, and then, but this is also open to anybody online. I'll just say a couple words, but and so people can put it in the chat. They can come up here. We're open for any kind of questions. It can be about the reading or anything else. I just want to say, being the bhakti that I am, and of course, those that are familiar with that term know that that's. I'm not trying to just totally identify with that heart energy, but that seems to be the way God has made me, let's say. And the operative word is love. And for me, the focus of concentration comes through just that natural love of the heart. Mentally, I'm not that great at concentration, and it's something to work on for sure. But for me, if I can engage my heart's energy, then I not only have something to give, I have an ability to receive, and that becomes my focus of concentration. It's the draw that takes me deep into connection. So, and I think in these days too, that divine love, the mother, the feminine, is so needed, because, you know, the words of power and weaponize, weapons, those are the things that are actually harder for us to work with now, because of how, in so many ways, the ego of, in this ego active age is so alive, that for me, focusing on my heart's energy is what keeps me attuned and on the path, the more straight and narrow, even though the dangers there are those fluctuations of the heart. I don't know. God seems to understand me there and brings me home. That's my comment. So anybody else have a comment or a question for Darshan? Please jump in there.
I would like to respond to what you say.
Sure.
So first of all, I have a wonderful quote here from Divine Mother that I would like to read at the end. It's not very long. But what is important, I can understand how Swami's answer that concentration is the most important instrument on the spiritual path, that can somehow, for people who are more feeling oriented, that can sort of be a little puzzling, right? Or not sound quite natural. But even when people have bhakti, when people are more bhakti like yourself, you also practice the Hong So technique. Hong So technique is a technique of concentration. So we watch the breath. We watch the breath as if it were the breath, the breath moving through our nostrils. We have the sound, etc. I don't need to tell you the technique, of course. But what I mean to say is that what that does to the heart. So, in other words, if we do it with devotion, if we do it religiously, right, in the good sense of the word, then Hong So calms the feelings in the heart. And that makes it possible to go to deeper layers of feelings in the heart, because so where we don't so much need to worry too much about the word love, because we go layers and layers deeper. When the feelings on the surface are in movement, then we get out of touch with the deeper reality of the heart. And so there's so much to discover. And one way to discover it is by seeking calmness, a calmness that comes through regular practice of that particular meditation technique. And then your natural, not just you, Mayatri, but the natural inclination of bhakti remains completely intact and becomes even more powerful, because then we worship God with ever deeper feelings in the heart. Okay.
No, I understand that. I think it's just that sometimes for different people, the thread is different, that it gets picked up.
Absolutely.
So I've obviously had to work with concentration and Hang Sa and all of that, and to learn to calm the bhakti for sure. But I always think that, and even Sri Yukteswar, and you know more than this so well, you know, without the natural love of the heart, there's no spiritual progress. So we work with that and concentration, and all of it is just those different tools. And I'm so grateful for that, because if I had to rely just on concentration, I'd be, I'm sorry to say, a lost soul. But anyway, I'm not trying to debate you here. I just wanted to bring that in too, because it's just it's been a really, it's been my salvation on this path, is all I can say.
That is so beautiful.
That comes through all the love of God, through satsang, through the people, the attunement that way.
And you know, Maitri, we had this conversation years ago. We had a similar conversation, you and I tell you when. Yeah, I'll tell you how it happened. So we had the 8-hour Christmas meditation in the other center. Okay. And so when you prepare, I think we were guiding it together, like Mark and you and Mike, maybe, and others. And so you have a little, like an outline, right? And so at a certain point, I said something like, concentration is a sign of love. Okay. So later you took that back to me and you said, what do you mean by that, or something? And I said, well, it's like, everybody loves her children, right? We all love our children. When they come home and they bring you a drawing that they made at school, but you are so taken by something that has upset you at work, or, you know, or you're hungry, or you're just in a mood swing, and so you don't give it any attention. You know, that's not a sign of love. It's a sign of love to say, okay, I'm going to give this my full attention, and you know, get rid of the whatever it is that holds me back. So even when it doesn't come natural, right away, spontaneous, mostly the love in our heart is so strong that we are willing to make that effort. And we say, okay, I'll give you my attention. I'll want to see this drawing, and I'm lifting myself, my own energy, to be able to give it my heartfelt attention. And that is also concentration. It's a sign of love.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's almost like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But love, if we truly are opening ourselves to that flow of love, it demands our concentration. And if we concentrate, we can expand that love more. And yeah, it's beautiful. So thank you. Please, somebody else jump in and save us. Who else? Come on.
All right, well, I'll go. Hi, everybody.
Hi, my love.
Hey, Mark.
I just wanted to, I don't really have a question, but I wanted to add my 2 bits on the whole conversation about concentration. And a favorite story that I like to tell is from, it's Puru tells the story in his book, Break Through the Limits of the Brain. And it's a story about Charles Lindbergh, of all people, you know, on his transatlantic flight in 1927. It's a 30-hour flight, and he has to stay completely concentrated the entire time that he's flying, because the consequences are life and death, right? Well, about midway through the flight, he has what can only be described as a superconscious experience. And if you read, you know, or cosmic consciousness, if you read the story in the AY about Master's first experience in cosmic consciousness, it tracks along very close to that. And it's, he has 360-degree vision. Controlling the plane becomes very easy. And he actually begins to wonder now. It's like he has a feeling of not being in the physical body anymore. He has the feeling of being more spirit than man. And Puru told me, when I told him that was a favorite story of mine when I got here, he said, "Oh, there's even more in his book. The Spirit of St. Louis." He said that he actually felt like there were beings coming to him and encouraging him to continue on with the flight. And I think that the key there is the level of concentration that he had to bring to what he was doing, and he had to stay in present moment awareness the whole time. So I think, your story, to Maitri's point and to what you were saying about, just being present and focused on whatever it is you're doing can lead you to some great places. And it's something that I think transfers over into meditation as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that book, I should read it. What is it called? Limits of the Brain?
Break Through the Limits of the Brain.
Yeah.
And it's on Amazon. It's not through Crystal Clarity.
Okay.
But if you search for books by Joseph Selby, then you'll find them.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Now, I guess I have a question if we want to move on. The part on the Bible quote about believing is, to me, interesting because it sort of provides an invitation to Western religious perspective of finding God through thinking in the brain. It provides an invitation that even the word even means maybe it's a lesser thing than receiving, but it is a invitation to the jnana yogi as well, to what about this receiving stuff? That would be maybe potentially a better approach. And so how do we receive? And you've talked about it's by concentration, and then there's discernment. So when we're receiving and we're concentrating, then all of the negative emotions are released. So the bhakti feeling side is purified, and the negative emotions are released, and all we have left is the pure feelings, the calm feelings like joy and power and light, all the things we experience in meditation, and that's really the path to power. And I like what you said about the power of discernment. So I guess the question is then, how do we perceive? In other words, how does the thinking person begin to intuit what his or her higher purpose really is? And how does the expansion phase after Hong Sau concentration technique, where we're not really thinking, but we're just becoming that peace or that joy, is it really that easy? I mean, that's really the real question is, isn't this path a way of making finding God easy? Because all you have to do is concentrate, see where your negative emotions are that can be offered up and released, and welcome all of the guidance and the intuition, and everything gets purified, and then there's grace, and everything just comes to you like a red carpet of everything perfectly happening, and even the seeming negative experiences are, in the end, all have silver linings, and we're grateful for them. And it's just part of the experience. So how do we get from the believing side to the really powerful, profound experience of the divine reality every day in our lives? And to the point that when we're walking down the street, we can just at will feel the bliss.
Right. First of all, great to see you, Mike, and great to hear your voice. And yeah, thanks for your question. Well, karma plays an important role. Okay, so we have to go in our thinking about these things to a causal plane. Okay, the causal plane is where the thoughts that come to us come straight from God or very close to God. And so on that plane, the master brings us a teaching, and he says, but part of those teaching is the caste system. So the soul moves through different stages of development from a very, sense-bound state of consciousness and egoic states of consciousness to a more energetic states of consciousness, to the consciousness of the warrior who is ready to sacrifice himself for the greater cause, and then finally to the Brahma. And it is different, karmically different for everyone. So what happens, I think, before we become disciples of a great master, of a saint, we become disciples of life. There comes a moment in a life, and whether it's in this life or in a future life, where you start asking the question, like Swami did, what is it all about? What am I to learn, especially? What am I to learn? And that is the turning point, the first turning point. When you ask that question, what do you want me to learn from life? Then the universe will answer in countless subtle, nuanced ways, but you will get an answer. And that will be your first step towards the light. So, and there is already, if the motivation has to do with feeling, of course. It's not like, just thinking something doesn't provide us with motivation, but there is in that change of attitude when you say, okay, what do you want me to learn from this situation? Okay, I'm in trouble, or I can't, I have this difficult tendency. What do you want me to learn? How can I work on it? You start asking the questions. And then in the asking itself, there's already barely perceptible a few drops of joy, because you're seeking connection, right? Before, you were just there alone on your own, doing it all, arguing with this person, fighting with the other person, being with this person, leaving the other person. But now, somehow, the great question is being asked. And then memory, the soul memory, begins to be awakened. And that cannot but be felt in the heart. Because if it is not felt also in the heart, then you will not be motivated to proceed in that direction. So I think that is how it starts. And then, like you said, at a certain point, you become from disciple of life, you become a disciple of a specific path. And the further you get on that specific path, the more narrow it becomes, and the more courage you need to proceed and to let go of those things that are not helping you. So the battle never ends, Mike. It goes on, and but the real deeper motivation lies in the heart. There is just a little drop of joy in every time when we ask the question, I know, I don't get it, please teach me, help me. Then there is already joy in the asking. And then when we also somehow we who are on the path just stick to that inner space of freedom where we can withdraw, that inner hermitage. Master says, make your heart a hermitage. So you make your heart a hermitage, you have a place where you can go. You have a place where you can go, and that is a place that you need to tidy every day. You need to keep neat, you need to keep it free from intruders, and you can go there. Even under the most dire circumstances, you can go there and enter and find the peace to receive guidance and to think things over. Okay. I hope that answers your question. I
Wonderful,
saw a
yes.
question also in the chat from Sonia. Wonderful. Sonia's here.
Can you read it out loud? 'Cause
Yeah, I
can't see
will.
it.
How can you pray from a love perspective for a relative who hates you?
Here's
That's-
a practical one.
Sonia, good to see you. I've been praying for you. You've been in my heart.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
wonderful
you.
to see you.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah, are you coming
Yes.
to?
I talked to Ahimsa yesterday, maybe for Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Then we're going to have a walk in Assisi or something.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Yeah. Here is
um,
my question. How to pray
yeah.
for someone who doesn't love you? I'm having problems with a relative. I don't know if you know, my husband passed away 1 month ago. So yeah, I'm having problems with his daughter, and I don't know what to do.
Are there any practical reasons why you should continue to interact with her?
I don't know, maybe, well, she is kind of fighting for the will. I had to call the police last Friday because she came to my house and she got violent, and everything is okay now, but she's mad at me, and I don't know if she's gonna do a contest or not. We'll see. I'm awake, I'm ready, I'm strong. So I'm gonna go with whatever comes. But I don't know if I'm gonna see her again or not. She's not allowing me to see my granddaughters anymore. And yeah, this early world is challenging, caro amico. Yeah.
This is very challenging. And I don't think that praying for this person right now, well, you can do it, but there probably wouldn't be all that much power in your prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're too involved, obviously, and naturally you're very involved. So there is more power, I think, in acceptance that this is where she is. And so you need not being able to see your grandchildren. Of course, that is very sad. So you can, so you have to work on acceptance and on letting go. Right? At the same time, I think it would be a help for her if every now and then you send her a little postcard, a little message saying, I'm still here. I'm always here. I have no bad feelings towards you. I love your children. And you just say a little message without expecting any answer. So that would be niyama. That would be the second. But the first one is acceptance, letting go and work on acceptance. And that is, what you can sort of focus your meditations on. You can do kriya, offer the whole situation up in the spiritual eye, and do that consistently, because these things are not going to go away in a short time. This will be a long-term situation that will drag on, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. You can work on acceptance. And the good thing is when you do that, then your psyche will open up your mind, your heart for other things that you can focus on and that make you happy. When you are, and also that will help you in your grief. So you have your own grief now because you lost your husband. You have this person who is confused, right? And so in order to be able to be free, or to be as free as possible yourself, focus on letting go, letting go, on acceptance that she is where she is. There's nothing you can do right now. Seeing that as a long-term situation, maybe even years. I don't know. I hope not. But then in time, God will bring you together again, but not now, because there will be not much power. Maybe one day you will wake up and you feel, now I have the power to pray for this person. And then you will do it. But until then, just every now and then, every 4 or 5 months or so, give a sign that you're still there. And for the rest, work on acceptance, and then on elaborate processing your own grief, and then on other things that you can do with your life. There's no need why you should stick only to this. This does not define your only reality, even though it's difficult. But there are other things that you can do now in your life.
Okay. I'll try my best.
Sonia, we will continue
Thank
to
you.
pray for you, Sonia.
Absolutely, I'll pray for you.
And we will pray for God's
Thank
will
you.
and guidance in the
Thank
tests
you.
that you have, because it is a difficult situation. And when we ourselves can't, maybe, because as Darshan said, we're so involved with it. Others, that's the power of the Sangha, can pray and help draw that divine wisdom, inspiration, and guidance to you and to the situation. So we will continue to surround it in light for you. You're in our
Thank you
hearts
so
and
much.
prayers.
Thank you, Mochi.
Thank you for your question, Sonia.
You have to come up here if you're going to speak, because they won't hear you, honey. So just, you want to say something? Because otherwise they won't hear you. He won't hear you.
You want to come and say something first?
It's just, this is the only
Okay.
mic that's working, or
Okay.
unless he has one. There you go. I guess you can use, do you want to say?
Oh, thank you. Hello to everyone. My love to you all, Darshan, and all of our my fellow Kriyavans. When we were talking about concentration, it came to me that awareness is a way, or it's probably synonym, but without awareness, we cannot have concentration, because you have to be aware that you wanted to concentrate in something in order to bring it to your heart, mind, or soul. So to me are kind of synonyms, awareness to concentration, or rather awareness led you to concentrate, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel it. I felt it. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that. Of course, concentration. I'm the reason why I gave this, reported what Anand told us about Swami. It's not really like something like all willpower. There's a lot of other things in it. Like we said before, it's a sign of love. It's the freedom to make a choice. It is awareness on where you want to focus, awareness of what is less important right now and focus on something else, all those things. So yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful that all the perspectives that you bring in all this, like Maitri and now you and Mike, you bring a lot of perspective. Of course, it remains the very word concentration, meaning to bring yourself, your powers back to a center. And of course, there good things happen. All good things happen when you're there, also in your heart, especially in your heart. Okay.
So I think
Hmm.
Carolyn has a question. Then I just want to, I can't quite see who's on, but I know that there are some folks on that are going to be on the pilgrimage too. If I want to encourage them, if you have just a few more minutes after Carolyn's question, maybe
Okay,
they could ask a question if they want, because I encourage some of them to
sure.
come on because to get a feel for you and have a little interaction. So go ahead, Carolyn.
Darshan, it's so nice to have you, and thank you for coming to speak to us today. I have been here at Ananda for I don't really know how long, 8 or 9 years, and I certainly have learned a lot. One of my best assets is perseverance. I know that this is my place, and I just would never go away from it. I feel so blessed. I have made contact. I know where I just believed. The thing I am asking is exactly about concentration. Sometimes I'm really able to do that well, and other times not. At home, I have a mask and, put things on my ears, sit correctly, and sometimes I even ask for just that, to be in that little small place so I can concentrate. But sometimes I just can't do it. More than I want. I'd like to get deeper, and that's my question.
There's another quote from Swami that would help you, that a secret of deep meditation is also relaxation. So relax about it, You have mentioned perseverance, you've mentioned concentration, and I'm now adding relaxation. So let's look at the three of them. So you say perseverance. Let's start with you. This means that you accept that your growth process is not a short-term but a long-term commitment and process. So you need to be patient, in other words, right? So that is patience. Then we sit down and we want to meditate and we want to concentrate, but it just doesn't come. And there are moments, and sometimes there are people, who later became very wonderful, great, saintly people who had a whole year or 2 years where they had a hard time focusing and concentrating. So what can you do? Well, one thing is important. Try to practice mental relaxation. So accept where you are. Say, okay, Lord, remember you're not alone. So Carolyn, if at such a moment you start a little conversation with your wonderful Heavenly Father, and you say, Lord, today is not a right day for me. What are you doing at that moment? You're focusing on your Father. You're talking to Him. You're giving Him your frustration. And sometimes that's all you can do. And then you can accept that. And you can also say, well, I'm pushing myself a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. So perseverance is one thing. Then relaxation comes when you just offer it up to the Father. You just say, Lord, this is where I am, and help me. And then concentration, well, that sums it up. You have taken your predicament and you're giving it to the Father. And of course, you're concentrated at that moment. You see, you're there, you're doing it with love. And then there is an element of also sacrifice. So you have to be, Sri Yukteswar calls the quality of tapasya, which is a Sanskrit word, which is also often translated as austerity, but he calls it holy patience. So sometimes when you sit down to meditate and just it doesn't happen, all right? So you do what we just said. You can talk with the Lord. have a loving talk with him, try to share your predicament with him, and then you relax and you spend some more time listening. Now, if you can spend a little longer time, that is what we call tapasya, holy patience. And that will give you a lot of psychological benefits. Because then you will see that when you deal with life's challenges and other people, that patience will be there for you. So you're doing wonderfully well, and just, be patient, talk about, give it to God, have conversations with him. He loves you more than you could even think. He loves us more than we could even realize. And that's my answer.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you,
one
Karen.
of the lessons I have already gotten is patience. So thank you, and I will just continue there.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Darshan.
Thank you, Karen.
So I know we've gone over here, and I do want to see if any of our people that are coming on the pilgrimage, I can't see who's online right now. I was trying to see that. Yeah, James and Linda are coming on pilgrimage, and so is Renee. And so I just wondered if you guys have any questions you just want to ask really quickly about that, or we might, we talked about having a separate Zoom about that with Darshan as well a little later on. But right now, if there's anything pressing, this is the time. We usually talk about a lot of different things on these. We've been real focused and concentrated on this one. But does anybody have a question about the pilgrimage? And even if you're not coming on pilgrimage and you have a question, you can ask it. If you have just a few more minutes, Darshan, will that work?
Sure. It looks so beautiful, your temple. Sorry.
So, Linda, do you have a question? No questions, okay. How about you, Renee? I see you, no questions. Okay, well, if we don't have any questions right now, we'll continue our questions offline, but we are getting closer to getting it all nailed down, and the portion that Darshan is involved in is pretty set. So we're excited that we'll be visiting you and that you'll be the one to. You have a question? Oh yeah, Mallory's going on the pilgrimage too. So she says she has a question.
It just occurred to me.
And Patricia, you're coming?
Great to see you, yeah.
Good to see you, Mallory.
This is just a practical question. I'm curious, when we go to the town of Assisi, will we be staying overnight there or just having a tour there?
No, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
You can go back and forth. It's a 30 minutes ride. It's like going, so there's no need to find a hotel in Assisi when you already have a place to stay at Ananda.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we any questions, about those logistics, feel free to ask me about that too. So, well, we don't want to hold you any longer, Darshan. We so much appreciate your attention and your love. And so you know what our typical goodbye for you is. First of all, we're gonna ohm you, and then we'll end with our very Texas goodbye. So let's all just surround him in light, sending him our gratitude and love for the time he spent with us today, and the wisdom he's imparted and shared with us. And we'll just chant Om 3 times. And to close, we end with Namaste, y'all.
Namaste, y'all.